Well, I sure appreciate everybody coming. Do we want to wait a minute or two? Because it looks like we're missing some people.
Chair, we do have quorum.
We do have a quorum. Well, maybe we could go ahead and start and probably a couple people will be joining us soon. Um, so um, Ms. Perez, can you start us off with the roll call?
George Gasto,
Here.
Hermes Castro, Christian Hernandez.
Here.
And please don't forget to unmute yourselves. Debbie Marshall. Here. Todd Blortson,
Here.
Samantha Steven, Kimberly Taylor, Zachary Bratt, Alyssa Ann, Jana Swartz. Here. Charlene Ornelas, Tanya Azevedo, George Rivas, Monique Ball, Wendy Merritt, Casey Rodville. That is quorum, Chair.
Wonderful. And public comment is next. Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comments, Chair.
Okay. Number 3, approval of the minutes. I hope everybody had a chance to read them over. I had forgotten that we did so much. So yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
I can move to approve the minutes.
Wonderful. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Debbie.
Wonderful. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions? Okay, thank you. Do we do a roll call vote or do we just affirm?
We do not. It's just a voice vote.
Wonderful. So everybody in favor of passing the minutes, please say aye. Aye. And is there anybody not in favor or wishing to abstain? Okay, super. Moving on to our discussion items. Number 4, public safety and passenger safety research and updates. And we have Al Styler and Stacy Bishop speaking on that.
Actually, my name is Julia, Tour Manager of Government Affairs. I'm filling in for Stacy today.
Right, okay.
Last minute change here. Okay, so to get started, we'll take a look at the background for the findings on perceptions of safety when using MTS. So project purpose, we conducted our biannual customer survey in the spring of 2022. And while overall ratings were high, it became clear we had some follow-up to do with riders in a few areas, namely safety. At the conclusion of the survey, customers were asked what would make the biggest difference in improving their experience on MTS, and the overwhelming response was more security. We decided to conduct focus groups to follow up with riders to gain further insight into their attitudes and perceptions into what safety means to them on board and at stops, the behavior of other passengers, and fare checking by Charlie security personnel. Our consultant for the customer satisfaction survey recruited participants from the 2022 survey submission, looking for a variety among age, geography, and current transit use. In total, 28 people were recruited for the focus groups and 16 ended up participating, one of whom identified as having a disability. Discussion groups were separated by gender, as we saw that gender was a contributing factor in feelings of safety and in hopes to facilitate the most candid conversation. So these focus groups were held in February of this year. So we'll now get into the key findings of the focus groups. During the focus group sessions, participants were asked a series of polls as well as guided discussion questions. To start, we established how important the topic of safety was to participants, and across the board, both groups rated personal safety at least a 9 out of 10 importance when considering whether or not to take transit. As mentioned earlier, there are some differences between genders when it comes to safety. The first we discussed was the impact on whether safety concerns impact a person's decision to use transit, or now with women being more likely to avoid a transit trip due to safety concerns, which may include concerns about the time of day, location of travel, traveling with children, or the presence of riders with mental health issues or experiencing homelessness. In particular, traveling at night was a cause of concern for women, reporting to feel less safe after dark. Several of the women discussed wanting to use transit more at nighttime and discussing alternative plans like using ride shares and taxi services, even if the cost is higher because feelings of not being safe on transit. So we also looked at the difference in safety perceptions between waiting for transit and on board. And in general, women felt less safe than men when waiting for the bus or trolley. Women reported waiting for the trolley felt slightly more safe than men, while men reported waiting for the bus felt slightly more safe. And then key to this discussion was the location of travel, including if there are multiple options for accessing the stop or the station. When it comes to riding transit, both groups felt more safe riding the bus than the trolley, though it was very close for men. And discussions on this topic noted the presence of a bus driver as a reason for feeling more safe on the bus. Women do feel noticeably less safe than men when riding the trolley. However, participants also discussed choosing to take the trolley anyway because of travel time and shorter trips. When it comes to making transit feel more safe, participants noted several recurring topics, including lighting, especially at bus stops, the presence of other passengers, but not having people who are loitering, which was seen as a concern, the presence of security personnel, and then other factors like having the view of the stop be unobstructed, cameras, and the like. Participants also made note of actions they take to create a safe environment for themselves, like staying alert to their surroundings. A common theme was to have your head on a swivel. And both groups also reported strategies to avoid attention, though it was more prevalent among women who reported being conscious of what they were wearing and to make purposeful choices about footwear, jewelry, and that sort of thing. So when it came to creating a safe environment, the presence of security came up as a major theme. And the good news is that when security personnel are around, they are easy to identify, especially our code compliance officers and their bright yellow uniforms. People felt safe with both contracted and CCI staff, but not as much with passenger support representatives at the stations, who were more identified as helping with information and non-security matters. Participants generally reported having positive experiences and impressions of security personnel and were described as being present and interactive, though riders did note it is important for staff to show recognition and concern for riders beyond just conducting the fare checks. So we will get into this a little bit more as we wrap up this portion of the presentation, but participants across both focus groups reported they like to see security on board, and the physical presence of security staff helps riders feel more safe. However, participants also perceive that security doesn't always enforce existing policies or address situations in a manner that they would. And so when it comes to visible security, women are less likely to recall seeing staff than men were. And women perceive they see security on 25% of trips, where men felt they saw them about 75% of the time. But when it came to the question of do you want to see more or less security on board, 100% of focus group participants said that they want to see more security on board. Again, noting that it increases their feeling of personal safety. And so while physical staff presence was the most cited topic, increasing safety, there were also several other ideas mentioned and discussed by focus group participants. Lighting was another highly discussed topic. Increased frequency and signs that show the next trip also help riders feel safe. Cleanliness on board, emergency call buttons, and then also increasing awareness of ride assured security numbers, as that was found to have low awareness among participants. Much of the concern participants reported feeling was in regards to the behavior of other passengers, where there seems to be an elevated level of concern. Passengers reported that issues can occur any time of day, and when encountering issues such as cleanliness or poor hygiene, disruptive behavior, drug use, or fare evasion, it can create fear or discomfort for them. Participants generally were compassionate and empathetic to some of the greater issues surrounding the above and acknowledged that there's shared responsibility among organizations to solve the issue, but did make note that MTS is responsible for their part. And one of the ways participants discussed that responsibility was through consistent application of existing policies. Participants perceived that MTS has existing policies around some of the issues experienced on board, like inappropriate behavior, loitering, or fare evasion, but would like to see more consistent application in addressing those. Participants discussed that this might help them feel safer when using MTS, and that more visible security would be a key driver in making that happen. So lastly, just a quick update on where we are today and addressing some of these findings before I turn it over to Al. This information has also been presented to 2 security committees, a board committee and community advisory committee for review and guidance. We are actively working on improving the branding and communications of security hotline and texting system to make that more prominent for riders, including strategies for promotion. And we are looking at some other solutions passengers suggested. We have several lighting projects that will be funded from our recent social equity listening tour, both at select bus stops and along the Orange Line. We're addressing cleanliness throughout the system, and we'll be doing some further research and data analysis on where we're seeing safety issues happening. Then Al will also be talking about an action that the board just took over the last couple of hours. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Al Styler now to provide an update on other security efforts.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Al Styler. I'm the Director of Transit Security and Passenger Safety here at MTS, and I just want to thank you for giving me the time to make this presentation. As Julia had mentioned, I appreciate your patience with me because we did have a board item pass about 10:30 this morning that kind of outdated these slides pretty quickly. So yeah, so we have some really good news for you and for our customers. So I was asked to speak today about our outreach efforts, you know, what we're doing on our system to help passengers in need and to help deal with some of the problem behavior that some of our passengers are experiencing. Okay, before 10:30 today, we had 1 homeless outreach team that worked Monday to Thursday, 2 bus support teams that work 7 days a week, but just during the day, and 1 camp team worked Thursday to Friday, just on day shifts. Our homeless outreach team consisted of 1 code compliance inspector, 1 contract security officer, and 1 outreach worker. The outreach worker was provided by the Downtown San Diego Partnership and their unhoused care team. Downtown San Diego Partnership, I wish there were some of them here today because they have been such a fantastic partner for us and for our team. They provide an unhoused care team member that partners along with our team. They assist us in clearing areas that create safety hazards for MTS employees and our customers. And through our partnership with them, we're permitted access to a rapid response team in case we do have somebody that's experienced some kind of psychological or drug-induced episode. We have access to that. In 2022, before we partnered with Downtown San Diego Partnership, with our 1 CCI team, we had 218 patron contacts. We were able to reunite 2 individuals with their family. We had 20 people that were approved for shelter, but no beds were available. And we had 16 people that were able to get shelter. We also assisted with the Health and Human Services with getting benefits for 22 people. In 2023, when we started getting full-time support and assistance from Downtown San Diego Partnership, I believe these numbers are through June, but we had over 1,000 patron contacts, 2 more family reunifications, 16 people that were approved for shelter, but there were no beds available. 17 placed in shelter, and 25 people with health and human service benefits. So one of our challenges prior to this morning was that we didn't have coverage 7 days a week. But that's changed. This morning, the board approved increasing our staffing by 50%, almost 50%. We'll be adding 34 code compliance inspectors, 6 supervisors, 5 MTS dispatchers, assistant program manager, and another admin support for the clerical work associated with that. So now we'll be able to have 7-day-a-week coverage with our outreach team, and I'm sure Downtown San Diego Partners should be able to support us with that. They have been fantastic partners. So again, there's the future. We wanted the additional teams, but we still would like, dedicated workers who are responsible only for transit environment. We'd like to have our own dedicated bed space. It's a very limited resource here in the city right now. And there's often times where we make a lot of contacts with people and we'll talk to them, 10, 20, 30, 40 days in a row. And on that one day that they finally accept services from us and there's no bed available, it can be crushing for both us and for that person. Or sometimes it's not that the bed's not available, it's just that the person doesn't qualify for that bed. It might be an upper bunk and they have mobility issues and they can't get that bed. So that's difficult. So we'd like to have our own bed space. And we'd also like to have a mental health clinician assigned to us. That would help us go a long way into managing, some cases. Right now we don't have that authority. We don't have that ability. So it's like point contacts day to day, but we can't manage that person to make sure they're getting the care continuum that they need moving through. So that would be nice to have. And also we'd like to have a partnership that's not limited to one geographical area. Our downtown partnership is great, but they're limited to downtown, their jurisdiction. We don't have any provider that goes throughout our jurisdiction. Our bus enforcement support team, that's 1 code compliance inspector and 1 transit security. We had 2 of those teams this morning. We're going to work to get 2 more teams added with the addition of the new personnel. What our bus enforcement support team does is they respond real time to calls for service when they're available, to requests from bus operators. But what they mostly do is they collect data and information from our operators and our passengers, and they'll respond to problem locations to try to mitigate any of those incidents. In 2022, when we started the team, we had 573 patron contacts, met with over 1,100 operators, responded, as I mentioned, to 265 calls for service. We had 73 people accept some of the resources that we offered to them, which could be something small like just, literature about where they can get help or some kind of small kit to help them along. But we had 105 people decline any assistance from us. Again, up until this morning, we didn't have any night coverage, but now we'll be able to do 7 days a week coverage on all of our shifts with our bus support team. That's not only great for our passengers, but our bus operators will feel safer knowing that there's somebody out there that can respond to their issues. And finally, we have our CAM team. That's 1 code compliance inspector and 1 transit security officer. They work 4 days a week, and they're some of our partners that we work with the San Diego PD HOT team, their neighborhood policing unit. La Mesa, Chula Vista has outreach teams that we work with. San Diego Fire, River Rescue, lifeguards, Caltrans, and the Urban Corps. And what this team does is they respond to locations that MTS has a lot of property in and adjacent to our property. And they tend to be areas that are attractive for setting up encampments. So what Alan McKenzie, the CCI, does is he goes to these locations and, helps get them cleaned up, offer services, give them abatement notices so that we can clean up those areas and we don't have any issues on property that's owned by MTS. Again, it'd be nice to have 7-day-a-week coverage, but for right now, we just have Alan and he does a fantastic job with that. Additional efforts that we have, we've become very vigilant in our responsibilities for this. We've updated all of our resource literature so that our CCIs can have one pamphlet to hand out to anybody that might be in need. It used to be that they would be assigned to a location and they'd have to carry, 10 different flyers with them, but we've narrowed it down to one to make it easier. We have bi-monthly management meetings with the outreach team and the Downtown San Diego Partnership. We are part of the National Work Group. It's a group of transit agencies that work specifically to address issues that result of homelessness. They had a conference last year in Denver that we attended, and it was a lot of good ideas came from that. We attended the Regional Task Force on Homelessness Conference. We participated in UCSD, had a transit and homelessness symposium in San Diego. We attended that, and we were able to make contact with quite a few outreach providers. So making those contacts will help us in the long run. Roundtable meetings with the East Village Education Corridor. That's become a big deal again now that school's back in session, and parents and families concerned about their children walking through some areas on the streets that aren't as quite as passable as they should be. And we participate in San Diego State University's Homeless Resource Day. So next steps for MTS and for my department is, we've launched the Respect the Right etiquette campaign. I don't know if anybody uses Instagram or Facebook. I think I'm still on MySpace, and I'm probably the only one there now. So it is MySpace, but we're on we're on that. We are improving access. We're working on our rider short security hotline to bring that up to 21st century capabilities, so we can get a quicker response to any riders in need. And, as I had mentioned, we're always looking for ways to improve and enhance our security efforts, and increasing our staffing by 50% is going to really go a long way into helping us do that. So I think that's all we have. So if there's any questions or comments, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments? Yeah, Todd?
Thank you for the presentation. I greatly appreciate it. We've tended to see it's not just MTS and the centers itself, and I know you mentioned it's, other surrounding areas and other things that can come into factor in this. We're actually seeing people give up their bus pass to go to a more expensive service, contract service, because the person doesn't feel safe walking to, make public transit. And we've also experienced where some mobility trainers that we actually have on contract choosing not to do certain trainings because of where the location is going to be, as well as time of day and things like that. So I do think it's very much a shared, I really appreciate the work that you all are doing, but I do think it's very much a shared and a bigger problem outside of MTS. But thank you so much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. So.
Thank you for your understanding.
And Charlene? Was it?
There we go. Hi, I'm Samantha. This may not fall under MTS's umbrella, but as Todd mentioned, it's wonderful to see like how much MTS has taken on. It's really wonderful because this is a huge problem, especially after COVID. But you have a really high percentage of people who are declining services. So is there any steps, again, this may not fall under your umbrella,
No.
What's being done to make it more incentives? How are they selling it? What's going to change that super high percentage of declining services?
So it's, before I came to MTS, I worked 30 years with New Jersey Transit Police, and I left there and I worked with MTA Police in New York City for about 4 years before becoming here. And I got very involved in homeless outreach in those locations, big transportation centers in New York and New Jersey. And what we found is that so many declining services might sound like it's a fail every time, but every time we talk to somebody and they say no to us and we respect that and walk away, we're building that relationship. And that's an important thing to remember, because we're accepting their decision as an adult to say, no, I'm okay. So it's a painstakingly slow process to move somebody from living in the street to getting to go into a shelter. And then it's even another process to get them to follow up with their care and, make the doctor's appointments and go to the, whatever therapy they have to go to. It's painstakingly slow. But, we've taught our people to see a no as not as a failure, but as a, hey, you're building a relationship. And I know it doesn't exactly answer your question, but it's one more step into building a trust between people.
Right, okay. Thank you.
And I think if somebody is homeless, the chances are they've refused service several times. Because if they had accepted services, then more than likely they wouldn't be homeless. So in some ways, it's a, it's a characteristic of the population that they historically haven't accepted services. But I really admire your approach to take it that if you're building a relationship and eventually maybe on the 10th attempt you'll break through and get an acceptance. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just a few. First of all, I know that the focus group was small, but it seems very representative. There were a lot of things that you said that I personally was totally agreeing with. So I don't know how they were picked. I just saw that maybe it was just picked from that survey, but I felt like it was really representative. So thanks for that. I was curious if there are impacts because of the encampment ordinance on all of your services, because that has gone into effect and the transit lines are included within the city's ordinance, and some of the things that were brought up in the first presentation about safety and things happening around waiting for transit maybe would have an impact because of this new ordinance. So if you're working in tangent or if you've already seen any impacts there, I'd be curious.
It's too new to really have any data to say specifically what changes we've seen, but we have seen like some encampments, that have been cleaned up and maybe more people moving around in and about our system in different areas than they normally were, but it's just too soon to have any specific data to share with you right now.
Anything else?
We do have one public comment, Chair.
Oh, wonderful.
Is from Wendy Merritt from the Deaf Community Services. And Wendy asks, how do for help with safety, how do the officers communicate with the deaf community and homeless?
Not exactly sure.
Do they call an ASL interpreter?
We have in the past, we tried to do whatever we can to understand what the person's issue is. My officers are pretty quick at identifying, issues or something a person might have and try to resolve it that way. But we have used the ASL line before. They can call up our dispatch and we get it translated through that one.
And there are no other public comments, Chair.
Thank you. And I think we mentioned earlier that MTS approved 40 new positions, 6 supervisors and 34 of, I believe that's code
Compliance inspectors.
Code compliance inspectors. Yeah, that's 40 people. That should make a big difference. And there was some thought that might not be enough. But we'll see what 40 people can accomplish. And of course, these people have to be recruited. And that in itself is going to be a job to find these 40 people. But it'll be great to see these people come on board and see what they can accomplish, see how much of a difference it can make. So we'll be watching that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have number 5, MTS access update.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. Jay Washburn, Manager of Paratransit and Minibus for MTS. Just a few updates on the MTS Access Services. Our Youth Opportunity Program, which was recently extended to cover riders on Access, has been extended until June 2024. Involving this committee, the ASAC membership has been, we have 2 member positions that are expiring that are open, that we need to have our current members either reapply or some new members. We also are adding several positions to the ASAC committee as part of the renovation we're doing here. One being for a rider or family member advocate to get onto the committee. So those applications are online. The information is available on our website. And I believe Carla shared that out with everyone here on the committee. If anybody didn't get that information, please let us know. But please, we're looking for everyone's assistance in our recruiting efforts. The more people we get on this committee and active and involvement and feedback, the better we can make the services for the disability community. We are officially putting out tomorrow that our certification period for Access for all new certifications and recertifications as of October 1 will be 5-year certifications instead of 3-year certifications. 3 is pretty much the industry standard, but we're making several changes that we're trying to be ahead of the standards and do some things like this. Another change that we made recently was instead of a 2-day reservation window, we went to a 10-day reservation window, trying to give riders a lot bigger opportunity to book their trips, not be pressured last minute, and be able to get those things scheduled. I'm very pleased to announce that as of last month, 45% of our trips were booked in that 3 to 10-day window of the additional time that we've given people. So that's very exciting. That means that people are utilizing it. That's obviously what you always want to see as an agency when you make a change, that it's having an impact, which is a positive impact on the riders. So we're very, very glad to see that. We did, since the last time we got together, we had a job action that occurred. We had 37 days of a strike that occurred here for the union providing service for Access. We were able to maintain 60% of our service level. That is, may not sound like a lot, but when you have your entire staff out, to be able to do that, put it together with subs, multiple subs, and a lot of efforts. Several people here I'd like to recognize. I have Kevin Marquez, who's the Assistant General Manager from First Transit, and Tony Mercado, he's the Regional Director for First Transit. They basically lived and breathed the situation through the strike with their team 24/7, working to bring in subs, make arrangements, work with very limited staff to be able to maintain and provide that kind of a service level that we were able to maintain through the strike. We had very few complaints during the strike. We hoping that that is a result of our very robust communications we did. We were constantly trying to send out robocalls, email blasts, make sure that our ridership was fully informed of what was going on and keep them updated, not necessarily discouraging them from using our services, but letting them know where we stood so that they knew to make alternate arrangements if they could in those situations. So all in all, we think we came through that pretty well. We have some lessons we've learned on how we can do better in the future, hoping again, we never have to, but always go back and debrief, review these kind of situations, update your plans, and then hope you never have to blow the dust off the binder again. We do have a 3-year, or excuse me, First Transit has a 3-year labor agreement with the Teamsters now. So we've got that issue addressed and everyone's moved forward. We had only like a less than 2% employee loss over the strike, which we were very encouraged by. Take that to mean that a lot of people do enjoy their jobs and did want to come back to work, 37 days out of a job. You would think a lot people would look at alternate opportunities, especially given the employment market. So that's kudos to our employees at First Transit and their commitment to the services that they provide to our Access riders. We have some new sub providers that came in as pre-strike and as part of the strike. We've been using Yellow Cab Taxi for many years. They've been a great partnership with MTS. We also brought in a service called Userve. The easiest way to describe them is they're kind of the municipal contracting version of an Uber or a Lyft, specializing in dealing with transit agencies and communities. They have been a really great partner with us in the service that they've provided. And we also brought in multiple WAVE providers. A WAVE provider is an acronym for wheelchair accessible vehicles. Taxi and Userve are sedans. Obviously, we have about 25–30% of our ridership that is wheelchair. So we needed to make sure we did whatever we could to accommodate those riders also during the strike period. So we've had Care 7, San Diego Medical Transit, Telecom, Teleclinic, FACT. Can't forget them. They've been a huge assist to us in the strike. That really all these agencies came together to help step up and help through the strike. We still are experiencing some labor issues like just about every industry is. So the subs have continued to provide services for us. The number one goal is maintaining our customer service levels. So everyone's continuing to work toward that common goal. We've implemented a program to get the minivans that we have as part of the paratransit service. We hadn't been utilizing them as much previously, but we put a new program up so those vehicles are out on the street a lot more, providing another option for our ridership out there. So we're excited about that. Our online web portal, we call it Easy Access, where there's web-based and app-based reservations. We have approximately 20% of our non-subscription trips that are being booked through the web portal. So we're very excited about that. Again, consider that a success. A lot of our ridership are not the most tech attuned like myself. So to have that kind of a percentage of people using it to book their trips, track their trips and other things, we consider to be a success, and we continue to promote and push that program forward. Is there a representative from FACT today? I'm sorry. Oh, perfect. I was hoping you could maybe speak about the new FACT Now AFA program. I don't want to steal your thunder on that. I'll give you the floor in just a minute. Our FAIR program recently held some committee meetings, are working on accessibility of the ticket vending machines for people with disabilities, and came away from there with a lot of good suggestions. I've seen some of the back and forth there. We're hoping to have them come out here next meeting in December and give an update on those findings and what they were able to do and implement in regards to improving the use of the FAIR system on the Pronto system for individuals with disabilities. So again, we're looking everywhere we can where we can work on things to make it better. And we have a bill that we've been sponsoring through the legislature, which would allow MTS to bill managed care providers for the paratransit service that we provide. A lot of managed care providers have a lot of people utilizing MTS access as opposed to private services, but they do not pay any of those fares or even the copay, the $5 that riders pay. So we're looking to get that changed. Our bill has cleared the House and the Senate as of this week and is on the governor's desk for signature. So we're very hopeful that that's going to go through. And that would be helpful to the riders as well as MTS. MTS getting greater reimbursement, the riders getting their fares covered as they should under the managed care program through the Medi-Cal program. So a lot of things going, a lot of things in motion. So and please, I'd like to hand it over to FACT, just to talk about the FACT Now. Thank you. Oh, any questions? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jay. So as Jay mentioned, as of officially June 21st, we started Access for All grant, or Right FACT Now, which provides transportation, on-demand transportation for wheelchair accessible. So anybody in disabilities that are using a wheelchair mobility device, they're able to give us a call same day. We have about an hour response time to get to them. It is curb-to-curb services, and it's for $10 for any mileage trip. So we also do still provide transportation for seniors or people that don't have any mobility devices. So they can always give us a call and we'll assess their situation. If we're able to assist them, we will, I'm glad to do so. If not, we can always refer them to other programs that are available. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Is that it for the MTS access update? We're ready for number 6, the fixed route update.
MTS as of last week. I'm here to represent the rail division. We have a minor update. Construction downstairs has been delayed. We are now expected to finish the project by the end of the year. We will have a few weekend shutdowns on the Green Line between Gaslamp and 12th and Imperial. The next one is tentatively scheduled for 10 p.m. on Friday, September 29th through all day Sunday, October 1st, and there will be alternative bus service provided. Thank you.
That was very brief. Any questions or comments?
We're both bus and trolley.
Oh, of course.
Hi, I'm Keith Van, Manager of Service Operations for Bus. I don't have any updates right now, but welcome to take any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions from folks? Todd?
I might have one, but it might not be you that would address it. It might be Jay. Sorry, Jay. Couple meetings ago, I think may have been a discussion about the portal for SDM applications. And I know probably nobody's ready to address it today, but is there a chance that if that's going to go live, can we maybe have a presentation at the next ASAC?
Are you talking about the online reduced fare portal application? Yeah, that did come up today at the meeting, and the director of our fare collection system mentioned the aim is to do a small pilot in October of this year for the online applications of reduced fare. But we can definitely have him at our next meeting give an update on that particular area.
Even as well though, too, can we get like a presentation with maybe some slides of just what it would look like?
I'll definitely ask for that and see if he can do like screenshots or some
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
video visual to kind of show what that's going to.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks for that suggestion.
Yes.
I was gonna bring it up later in member comments, but this might be a more appropriate place. I went to an event over at, off of Balboa and Ruffin Road, and I was assisting someone who uses a mobility device. And while I was walking, she crossed the street at Balboa and Ruffin, and it was a really, really tough cross. But while I was going to meet her, I was just observing the area. There's no sidewalk. There's a bus stop there. And so I just was kind of wondering about the process. How do you decide where the bus stops are? And how do you make sure that if somebody uses a mobility device or needs extra assistance, how do they safely navigate to a space if there's no sidewalk? And there were a lot of obstacles in the way, not all related to MTS, but I'm just kind of curious, how are spots identified? And then if there are barriers to access for folks, what's the remediation process for that?
So as far as like implementing a stop, a lot of the stops that we have they've just been there forever. It takes a lot to implement a new stop, goes through a review process. And one of the main things we always are concerned about is access, right? For the disabled people. So we have a team of people, passenger facilities group, that we work with and identify spots and, ideas or ways that we can make things accessible, whether it's trimming some bushes back or getting a concrete slab installed at a stop that doesn't have one that's accessible. So that's really about it.
Yeah, actually just went through a similar situation with an individual who's in a wheelchair, and there's a stop, but there's no sidewalk, there's no way to get to it. Unfortunately, it's because of the coordination of multiple government agencies to put this together. But what we do is we go out and we look and we say, okay, we're gonna move the stop here, half a block away, where there is a sidewalk or where there's an intersection with curb cuts or something. So we try, it could be one of 100 solutions, but we try to look at how we can, with all the different entities we have to work with, whether it's the city, the county, the suburbs, whoever, and right of ways and stuff, to see how we can make that accessible in that situation. So it's just a case by case one-off. If those accommodations, if that stop or that area can't be made accessible, that could potentially qualify someone for access service. Because it isn't necessarily just about their disability, but also their ability to access the fixed route system. So.
It was just, and there was just a lot of things there that it just opened my eyes to just so many different barriers. And then also I know that, I was talking to someone else and it was the Accessibility Advisory Board had brought up some issues with some of the bike lanes going in and people then having, if you're getting off a stop, having to cross over the bike lane. And so if you are a person with a visual impairment, you are not going to maybe see that bicyclist coming along and they might not know you're not seeing them. And so are we looking at those issues as well too?
We actually had to, about a year ago, worked with the city of San Diego because there was a complaint that was made from a bicyclist about an access bus blocking a bike lane. And we had to work with the whole same issue that, well, ADA trumps bicycle. Especially with a wheelchair ramp, we've got to be able to pull to the curb there. So we worked with the city and they were great and they were very understanding that, we're going to get in and out of there, one, as quickly as we can, two, as safely as we can, entering and exiting that bike lane. But we have an obligation, both state and federal, that we have to serve the disability community. And, when they're talking, well, can't we go around the block or something? Well, no, that person may not be able to travel that distance to it. So they agreed and we put a memo of understanding together with them that, access services and access for the disability for the paratransit system trumps all of those items. Again, safety first, always in those situations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Just one
Yes,
quick question. I'm assuming you have like a running list of stops like that are, or several stops that you may be looking at that could use some modifications, like you mentioned, Jay, moving them or whatever city entity. But if there's like for Debbie's example, is there some way that, or like a best way to report that to see if it can be reviewed? And who would that be?
You could always contact our customer service and they'll usually call our radio department and then I'll send one of my supervisors to investigate. Some of the new bike lanes have gone in for Park Boulevard, for instance. I don't think we asked for it, but before they implement everything, they send us the plan and they ask for our review on stuff. So that's kind of how that process is going. And I know the complaint you're talking about on 30th Street where somebody got let out in the bike lane. Yeah, that was recent. So, so we do take those seriously. But the customer service would be the fastest way to get it to us. And then we can just react as quick as possible.
You're also always welcome to send that information, anything to Carla or I, and we'll get it routed to the appropriate party also. The other part of your question is yes, our facilities and stops department, they have a regular list every year in our budget. There is money set aside for ADA upgrades to bus stops that we work in conjunction with the city on, as well as ones we do ourselves. Just the biggest slowing thing in all of these processes is the multiple jurisdictions working through, getting the necessary permitting, setbacks, other things, and then whether or not there's any infrastructure that the cities, municipalities, or county has to put in any of those areas.
So if it's more city-based, you can contact the San Diego ADA coordinator. His name's Todd Hood. I'm from San Diego Center for the Blind, so a lot of my clients call Todd. The push buttons don't talk. Call my friend Todd. So he's the ADA coordinator. His phone number is all over Google. If you can't find it, email me.
Just make sure you get the right Todd, you know.
Please, please.
Is there anything else on the fixed route? Yes.
Just one question. I know in the most recent service changes this month, there were some increases to bus service. I assume that was in tandem with continued hiring of more bus operators. Is there a status update on that and how long it might take to restore more service?
That's a good question. We're still short drivers. We just graduated our largest training class we've had in quite a few years. It was started at 30, but 17 graduated. We're holding the hiring fairs here at the Mills building, seems like every couple of weeks now. Trying to make offers to at least 20 each time. Yeah, the more people we can get, the more service we can put back in there, obviously, but we're still pretty short.
Well, we keep at it. Yeah, I'm hoping that they can find those drivers and those security officers, because
Right.
it's hard to get really good employees these days. Yeah. Are we ready for the other items, or is there anything else? on
For the
fixed-
record, Chair, there are no public comments wishing to address on this item.
Oh. So there was no public comment? Oh, good, okay. So we're ready for other items. Number 7, committee member communications and other business. That already said gave theirs. Yeah, that is really exciting, really exciting. Any other member communication?
I just wanted to
Yes.
share, so for those who don't know, I'm Jana Schwartz and I help lead the Age Well Initiative with the County of San Diego, and specifically focusing on transportation. And we have our next meeting on the 20th, and we will be having MTS as a speaker, presenting primarily on the transit training programs that you all have, which I think is really exciting and aligns with a lot of what we heard today, that I think increased safety also comes from increased education. You are all invited. But just wanted to say that I really appreciate Ariel's contributions there and her partnership on that. Thanks.
Any other board member comment? Okay, and number 8, our next meeting, it's December 14th. At the usual 1 o'clock time. And unless there's anything else, number 9 is adjournment. Thank you all for coming.